What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Spider-Man Miles Morales' sales yet again, and this time, it is much, much better than was previously talked about. So remember, we actually did a story weeks ago, and it was actually kind of a big thing in terms of how little, I would honestly say, how little Miles Morales sold, and there was a lot of, I would say, optimism in the community saying, well, it could be tied to the PS5, and I think over time, it'll do better, stuff like that, and you know what? A lot of you guys were absolutely right. This game has sold a lot better now that time has gone on a little bit more, now that Sony has released a little bit more figures. So we'll go over the numbers and we'll go over what this means for the future, maybe even some predictions of how many copies this game can sell overall. But first, as always, make sure you guys are subscribed to this channel, hit the bell icon so you guys know when all these videos go up. And if you guys want to follow our Twitch channel, the link for that will be in the description below. All right, 4.1 million copies is how much Miles Morales has sold. So that is much higher than what it was, like 600,000, 660,000, whatever it was that it was several weeks ago. I think before Christmas is when we talked about it. So that's very good. Now, I don't think it sold like 3 million units in like a month just now. I think that the old numbers were probably underreported, right? At the same time, 4.1 is a lot better. Now, people will say, or at least articles will say, and articles have been saying this, Spider-Man on PS4 took it 1 year. After 1 year anniversary of that game, it sold 13 million units. Now, I really don't think Miles is going to be able to match it, but it doesn't have that long to go, you know what I mean? It's only got like 8.5-ish million to get there, and you got to think, and you know what? I do agree with people when they said, I think it ties into the PS5, maybe not a lot of people are buying it for the PS4. I don't know the specific numbers, but I did see in one article, it did say that Sony said that most of the copies of Miles Morales is actually on the PS5. So the PS5 has sold 4.5 million consoles, okay, at the time of this recording. It sold 4.5. So that means the majority of the 4.1 is on the PS5. That's very good. That's very good. And honestly, that is a very good sign, I would say, for the future of Miles Morales. I do think this game will hit at least over 10 million units. And it's crazy. It's actually crazy. It's why this franchise, I mean, obviously there's a lot of reasons why this franchise is really special in terms of the game itself, but why it's a kind of like a darling to Sony outside of how good the game actually is stuff like this. I mean, to be honest with you guys, most games, like right now, we would probably call it, and they would probably call it. Now, not all games. I would say some of the biggest PlayStation exclusives, okay, some of the bigger PlayStation exclusives, you don't really call. Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima, God of War, Horizon, stuff like that, Uncharted, games like that, I would say, those are different. Like after a month or two and you see, oh my God, like it sold 5-6 million, we'll check back in a year or two and you'll probably discover it sold over 10. Okay, so it's done that. But even with something like that, most of these games don't double or triple in their units sold in a year or two. And that's something that Miles and Spider-Man does really, really well. You know what I mean? I think a lot of these Sony first-party games, besides Spider-Man, are really like upfront kind of sellers. So again, like Uncharted, a lot of these games that broke records, like, hey, we sold this many million units in the first week. Even if you look at like Ghost of Tsushima, I think the game has sold over 5 or 6 million units, but like 3 or 4 was in the first month. So, and I'm not saying that as like a critic. I mean, Ghost of Tsushima, in my opinion, is a better game than Miles Morales. So I'm not like putting that game down. And again, that's just an opinion. Don't get crazy at me because I put Spider-Man down just a little bit. But no, I mean, it's an example in, Ghost of Tsushima is such a good game, but it sold 3 or 4 million units in the first 2 or 3 weeks, and then since then, and it's been like 7 months, since then it's only sold like 2, so it didn't even double. It got like 50% of it, you know what I mean? So, and that happens. Last of Us started very strong and then completely died out. Again, you go back to games like God of War, Uncharted, Horizon, they do really well to start, and then they kind of slow down as time goes on. Spider-Man does not do that. Spider-Man does really well, right? I mean, you look at the original Spider-Man, I think in the first week it sold 3 million, and then I don't know what the numbers were after a month or two, but I mean, you got to imagine that it almost doubled itself in a year. Say it sold 6 million units, 6 million copies in like the first month, and I don't think it was actually that high. I think it was actually lower. Well, then in the next 11 months, it did it again. And I know you're saying, well, that's a lot of months to just replicate it, but again, games don't do that. Most games would probably add a couple million. Spider-Man literally doubled itself. And again, Miles, if you want to think about it and you want to believe what we talked about before, right, with let's just say under a million at around like a week or two before Christmas. So then another month and a half, it tripled. It went to 4 million, okay? Now, again, maybe those numbers originally were undervalued. Maybe it didn't include bundles or digital or something. I mean, obviously, it didn't. I don't think it literally did sell 3 million in 1 month, so I do think it was underreported. But still, that is insanely good. And again, if we check in a year from now and we're at 10, then it increased by 6 million. I mean, that is incredible. These games have staying power, but they also have like new people that get the PlayStation consoles, like go for these games, which is really good. You obviously want to see that. So that's a really, I get it's maybe like a smaller story. Like I'm just talking about a number of units that the game has sold, but I do think it's important because this game wasn't looked at, I would say, as the biggest success story in the world a month ago, but you look at it now and it's like, you know what? 4 million. If you check in again in like 5 or 6 months, all of a sudden, maybe by its 1 year anniversary, it's at like 8 or 9 million. I mean, this thing. Now remember, I guess the rumor of Spider-Man, the PS4, is that it's closer to like 20 million now. It will never, Miles will never touch that, okay? But I think it can hit 10 plus million. And, going back to that conversation we had like a month or two ago, I talked about, is that something, if the game sold like 1 or 2 million, is that something that scares Sony and Insomniac where they're like, I don't know if we should make more games in the franchise anymore. And we talked about that, and I actually do think that would be, I mean, if the game only sold 1 or 2 million, I do think you'd have to look at it and say, all right, I don't know if it's really worth it. And also, you would have to kind of look at Spider-Man 2 and say, Jesus, I hope that the first game wasn't like lightning in a bottle where like everybody under the sun played it, but then they kind of got tired and now they're not going to play it anymore. But you know what? Doesn't seem like that's going to happen at all. Miles, even if Miles does half of what Spider-Man does, it's a expansion DLC kind of thing. It's like a pumped up DLC. You know what I mean? It was a $50 game. It was a lot smaller on purpose than Spider-Man, and it absolutely served its purpose. So congratulations, Sony. Congratulations, Insomniac. Congratulations, Miles. And we just look forward. We'll have to see. I mean, my God, I can only imagine what Spider-Man 2 is going to sell. I really do think that it's going to be a game, and I'll say this and I'll stop. Sony consoles and even Microsoft consoles, the amount of people that have the consoles to the amount of people that play the games is very low, okay? Or I guess the other way around. So maybe only 5-10% of people that have the console actually play a specific game. For the Nintendo Switch, some of their biggest exclusives is more towards like 60 or 70%, which is outrageous. And for PlayStation, that would mean like a game selling like 50 or 60 million copies, which would never happen. But like Spider-Man seems to literally break that. Like if Spider-Man already has done 50%, like say on PS5, I wonder what Spider-Man 2 is going to do. I think it's going to be really, really big. So let me know, guys, in the comments below, what do you think? Is this a much better number? What do you think about the future of maybe spin-off games? Do you think this makes like a Spider-Gwen thing or stuff like that? Do you think it makes it more likely? Let me know. As always, make sure you guys are subscribed to this channel. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when all these videos go up. Again, if you guys want to follow me over on Twitch, the link for that is in the description below. Would love to have you guys over there. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all on the next Miles Morales video.